Hey there, and welcome back to episode 4 of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. Join us on our story. No, join us on the chronicle of our journey amongst the Sea of Stars, where we will be watching the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes OVA. As always, I'm your host, Gee, and also, as always, with me is our reliable wayfarer through the stars, Iro.
Hi there.
Hey there, Iro. It's good to have you here.
Yep, it's good to be here.
Yeah. I just realized I can't really keep coming up with new titles for you every time I introduce you.
Yeah.
We only have there's so many episodes of this show. I'm only so creative.
Broken the 3-episode rule.
Yeah, we've done it.
Episode 4, 10% through the show.
Yes. As Iro said, we are now over 10% through Legend of the Galactic Heroes. We are beginning to approach uncharted territory. It's exciting.
It's true, yeah.
But we're not quite there yet. We're still making our way through the episodes. Some new stuff, some things we you could say we didn't quite expect.
Yeah.
We will. I think we can get into that once we actually start talking about that episode. But
sure.
For now, welcome back, everybody. For those of you
still sticking with us after,
we appreciate that you apparently can tolerate our totally hot, relevant takes on Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
It's the hot and relevant show these days.
Yes, #1 trending on High Dive. Shoot, I think we did this bit last time, so I can't. Yeah.
It's all us.
It's all us. It's still all us. It didn't change from last week. Sorry, High Dive. I'm sure you got some. I'm sure you got some social media people that are doing good work, but it was mostly us. So again, you can send me a DM, and we can talk about who you can send the check to. But let's just get into it. So this week we're going to be talking about episodes 10 through 12. These are, I believe, episode 10, Jessica's Battle, episode 11, The Actress Exits, and episode 12, Invasion of the Imperial Territory. These are an interesting trio of episodes, yeah. I think.
Mostly FPA focused, I'd say.
Yeah. This trio of episodes is interesting, whereas the last trio we watched were kind of this really good short encapsulation of everything we love about Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this 3 are kind of also everything we love about Galactic Heroes, but in a way more depressing way.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, anyways, 10 and 12 anyways, and then 11 is that reminder that, oh right,
still 80s anime.
Yeah, this anime is up to some real bullshit. Bullshit that I totally love, but bullshit nonetheless. But before we get to that, let's start off with episode 10, Jessica's Battle. So with this episode, we find that Yang has been summoned to Thurnuzen, the second biggest city on Heinessen,
where he attended a military academy, right?
Yes. This is also where he attended military academy. Excuse me. And he's here to attend some. You know what? It's funny. I couldn't even actually tell you the exact details. Some bullshit military ceremony,
Yeah.
Something that it matters so unbelievably little in the grand scheme of the plot of this episode.
But he's here.
Yeah, and so he gets out, he gets off the the walkway of the space airport or whatever, and as soon as he comes down the escalator, he is accosted by the paparazzi. And not only the paparazzi, but maybe even worse than the paparazzi, politicians. Especially the politician Raymond Togliatti.
Yep. Run-in for office, I guess.
Mm-hmm. On the pro-war ticket, I suppose.
The only way, according to his dramatic speech in front of the camera crew that accompanied him to the spaceport to watch him shaking hands with the hero of El Fasil, the only way to honor those who've died in war is to fight harder and destroy the Empire.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, you know? I mean, here, look at this orphan girl. She's so sad. We have to go to
Don't
war.
we need to fight for her? Right, everyone?
Yeah, so as you can kind of guess from our tone, you know, this was a very, like, a sleazeball move in a trio of episodes with a lot of sleazeball moves. This politician basically just accosts Yang before he can even get a word in, shakes his hand, gets it all on camera, you know, basically trying to make it look like Yang is endorsing this candidate. And, you know,
Yep.
I love Yang, but I kind of got to give him a little shit here. I feel like Yang could have, like, maybe offered up
a stronger, yeah.
Kind of feels like he just gets swept up in it, and maybe that's just Yang being so, like...
I think that is, as much as we talk about Reinhardt's character flaws, he's too, like, aggressive, but I feel like Yang's main character flaw so far is that he's not aggressive enough when he needs to be.
Yes, I would agree with that sentiment. I think Yang is a nice guy. He doesn't like to rock the boat, and I think this episode is kind of interesting because I think this episode in general does kind of expose a lot of Yang's, you know, less obvious flaws that, you know, are easy to ignore when, you know, it's the
when
adventures
he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, when he's such a nice guy, because he is such a nice guy, and turns out that one of his weaknesses is that maybe he's too nice of a guy, but...
Indeed.
After that, Yang makes his way to the hotel where, I think, I forget whether it's him or Julie who just says, "Damn politicians!" But, you know...
Such scoundrels!
Right, but I did appreciate that. But before they can even start to relax, their, like, hotel suite gets invaded by what looked like, at first, a bunch of, like, freaking space delinquents.
Just fucking 3 dudes show up at your hotel room to just beat the shit out of you. Like,
yeah, it's the hero's welcome indeed.
Hell of a thing.
Yeah, but and then we find out that you know, then we see Jessica come running in.
Yes, Jessica Edwards.
To stop the violence. Yes, Jessica Edwards.
She hasn't shown up since the political rally from, like,
no, I don't think so.
Way earlier.
Yeah. So she's here, and she's here on in Thernusen, and reveals that she is working with the anti-war party.
Yep.
That is
person running against Raymond Togliatti.
Yes, and
what was his name? James Thorndike.
James Thorndike. Yes, they introduce him a little bit later, but kind of a good moment here. You know, it's kind of that bittersweet. You know, it's the best Yang stuff is kind of bittersweet, and you know, it's that part where, you know, Julian's like, "Aren't you going to tell her that the only reason why you even bothered to fly down here in the first place was to see her?" And, you know, it's like, Yang's like, "How can I do that? How could I tell her that after I may have, like, inadvertently, you know, destroyed their political campaign?" And
I could imagine Julian was ready to just fucking put those guys in the dirt.
Yeah. No, let's not forget Julian was totally ready, was fucking digging through his luggage for a fucking space gat, ready to put these 3 delinquents in the dirt. You know, it was very good. Like bless Julian. You know, I think in many ways, whether intentional or not, Julian will probably ranks up there in the highest echelon of best fictional manservants. You know, just because that dude is fucking ready to go. You know, like Kirky Eyes is great. Kirky Eyes is unbelievable. Kirky Eyes is fucking so much. You know, but Julian can bring it too. You know, Julian. If we're talking about, like, good,
he's there when it counts.
Yeah. If we're talking about good men in their respective corners, I think Yang and Reinhardt both have good people at their backs. But yeah, so, you know, Yang is like, well, you know, getting off at the airport sucked. Getting to the hotel sucked. Let's get dinner. That can't suck, right?
I used to come to this place all the time when I was in academy.
Yep.
It's nice and cheap, and the guys know me.
And nobody bothers you. But unfortunately, times have changed, And we get this fucking amazing scene.
Yeah, what a
where
goddamn.
I believe is it just like a waiter or the bartender approaches Young and is just like, hey, these like hot space chicks want your autograph, Young. And Young's
You're
like,
such a famous military hero.
yeah, and Young's like, man, I just kind of want to eat dinner, but okay, let's make this quick.
This is a private dinner.
Yeah, and then as soon as he like acquiesces, fucking the lights dim and they start playing. They start playing the fucking anthem, like the national anthem.
Fucking snaps his fingers, the lights dim, and then the anthem starts playing.
It's like the most.
And everyone in the restaurant starts singing along.
Oh my god, it's so bad. It's unbelievable, and
that would ruin my dinner too.
Yeah, and so with Young's dinner also ruined, he's like, well, let's go for a walk. Yeah. And who else would they run into on their nighttime stroll than the fucking patriotic night corps?
These fucking skull-faced dirtbags are back.
Yeah, these shocker gang motherfuckers. Yeah, doing what they do best, committing petty violence against their political opponents. And yeah, this is where Young rescues the guy getting beat up by the Patriotic Night Corps.
Yeah.
And turns out he's a member of the anti-war party Jessica's campaigning with, takes him back to their headquarters.
Make sure to send Julian home. Back to the hotel.
Yeah. Sends Julian home, sorry kid, this is adult stuff now. And this is where Young and Jessica kind of go for a stroll through the military academy at night, kind of reminisce. Yeah. We find out that as we gotta
get a bit of young here.
Yeah, we get a little bit of young, just here at military academy for the scholarship, because how else can he afford it? Which I think is a very good, realistic motivation for a person in the military. Honestly,
yeah.
Nothing wrong with people who join the military, for the more traditional reasons, but I don't think it should, ever be, taken trivially, how many people do join the military for, more like practical reasons, and then, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Or you could also argue that perhaps there's something wrong with a system where somebody like Young's only option, if you wanted to study history, was to join the military.
Yeah, you've been at war for 150 years,
yeah.
I don't know.
But yes, we get some young meeting Jean Robert Lapp, and also how they meet Jessica.
Yeah, it just turns out a bit differently than Daniel Teze.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun bit here where Young wins the coin toss. The coin toss to hit on Jessica first and to have her hand in a dance, but it may come to you as a surprise. Young's not a good dancer.
Yeah, poor guy.
And
Jean-Robert Lapp just
swoops in
over.
Yeah, and fucking takes her out of his hands. And I suppose you could say the rest was history.
Yeah, and, Young's too good, too much of a doormat sometimes.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those parts where we start to kind of expose Young's weaknesses. Is that Jessica says I was playing hard to get. If you had asked to dance with me again, I totally would have been happy to.
But he refuses to move in on his friend's territory.
Right. It's
what he perceives to be his friend's territory.
Right, that's the thing, right? It's not even his friend's territory, quote unquote, to use those terms. It's what he perceives.
Right.
Things were not even set in stone. A girl's not going to fall in love with you in a single dance. But Young just was so willing and so ready to throw in the towel, and I think I'm not saying this scene is pivotal to Young's downfall in the future, but I think it does illustrate that Young is actually the kind of guy who.
Yeah,
he's not. He doesn't necessarily give up. That's not. We've seen him fight, and we've seen him fight in very desperate situations. Young does not give up, but I think Yang,
it's not really for himself though.
right. But Yang does have this perception of his own sense of worth. I think that he is not worth sacrificing anything for. You know, like he will fight to the bitter end to save his men. He will use any crazy risky plan if it means saving his own men and reducing casualties on the enemy side. But when it comes to himself, it's like, come on, Yang, self-care is important.
Yep. That's why he does. That's why he didn't retire a couple episodes ago.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. He wanted to. It probably would have been better for him in the long run to retire, but for the sake of the men he commands and the sake of the state he resides in, he
put himself aside.
Yeah. Anyway, so Jessica and Yang are maybe about to rekindle some lost love when just like any good proper anime, they get interrupted by a bomb explosion.
How was that explosions?
And an explosion that happened none other than the anti-war party's campaign headquarters, where
PKC are off committing acts of domestic terrorism.
Yeah, exactly. Just like,
sorry, I meant it was a lone wolf.
Exactly. Alone. We can't start making assumptions of the allegiances of the people who carried out this heinous act. Our thoughts and prayers go out to those affected. But so James Thorndike is killed in the explosion, and things are looking worse than ever for them, for the anti-war party. And the episode basically ends with Yang going to the ceremony, kind of thinking about stuff, and finding out once he comes out that Jessica has taken James Thorndike's place and
she will be running for office.
Yeah, and not only does she run, but she wins. She wins in a landslide victory.
Because this is a fantasy world where acts of domestic terrorism lowers your approval rating.
Yes. The Legend of Galactic Heroes lives in an idealistic world where committing heinous acts backfires against you because the populace are reasonable enough to say, "Yo, that's fucked up." But
we do get the scene of Yang going back through the airport and people, the paparazzi again asking him his opinions on the election and such. And he actually, he does actually stand up for the anti-war party,
Yes, he does finally voice his opinions on the matter. And I think this episode, more than anything, I think thematically, what this episode is also talking about, other than, Yang's backstory and maybe some of his own personal flaws, but it's also talking about the nature of being politicized and how being politicized is, for better or worse, it's not a personal act. Yang did not choose to become a political figure.
That's right.
But he is a political figure.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, there's that conversation Jessica has with Yang where, yes, Yang, of course you don't want to endorse, the pro-war party. Of course, you don't want to get involved in the quagmire that's politics. Of course,
but you are a war hero, and
exactly,
your face is known.
You are a public figure, a highly well-known one at that, who has accomplished truly notable things. You don't get a choice in whether you are a political figure or not. The only choice you get to make is, for better or worse, how you use that. How do you use that power? How do you use that influence?
Just I feel like you see this on social media, modern day type stuff of people, saying that, I don't want to take a side, or I don't want to be political or whatever. But when you have 2 million followers or whatever,
or you're the hero of Alpha Seal,
it can't be helped. It's just the state of things.
Yeah. And I think it's a good lesson that Yang kind of learns here in this episode. And I don't think this necessarily implies that Yang's going to get into politics, in the future. I truly do not think that is in him. If it ever happens, it's going to be a, kind of a Cincinnatus type situation where he is, unwillingly dragged into it, but bails on it the second he can. So we will see about that. But anyways, that's episode 10. And then we get into episode 11, the
Back to the
actress
Empire.
exits, back to the Empire. And I just want to say before we get into this that we have been hearing from a lot of commenters that you guys are concerned about us watching the previews.
Yeah.
And we thought about it, and as much as we loved kind of having speculating wildly on the contents of the next episode because of just how crazy some of the previews could get, we understand that apparently some previews later down the line spoil things pretty heavily in a way that actually could be a detriment to new viewers. So we've decided that from here on out we're not going to watch the previews. And the reason we decided that is because we saw the previews for episode 11.
Right. So watching episode 10, and the credits start rolling, and I bring up that maybe we should stop watching the previews, but also this stuff coming up was all in Dino Teze anyway, right? Let's just keep watching the previews for this next batch. And then the previews for episode 11 is a bunch of crazy shit that's not in Dino Teze at all.
Yes, it could not have been better timed. We were basically having the back and forth during the credits of episode 10. I was saying, I don't know, maybe we should just stop now, make it nice and clean.
No, it's fine. And it's all stuff we know. We can stop after episode 12.
And no, turns out that episode 11, like many things about Legend of the Galactic Heroes, I suspect the show is has some latent psychic ability, because despite the fact that it aired before, either of us were born, it has a canny ability to predict the conversations we have and address them in a way that, address them immediately in a way that is almost unnerving. But yes. So we saw the preview for episode 11. We see freaking kidnappings and courtly intrigue and evil, baronesses and shit. It was, but let's just get into it.
Yeah.
So here we are, episode 11, where we it opens up with talking about the history of Friedrich IV again, and talks about how when he took the throne, he said he did as they say in the show, he sought beautiful companionship.
Enthusiastically threw himself into the pursuit of pleasure.
Yes. If in case you forgot that Friedrich IV is kind of a piece of shit, and and that he picked up Annerose when she was at the ripe age of 15. So look, we get it. You're like an old school, like almost medieval-esque like nobility, and maybe that shit flies. But also, we're in the galactic calendar year of like 600 something. Like we should be better than that. But before Annerose, there was another. There was Marquis Benemunde. Benemunde was, I suppose you could say, the
previous,
beautiful companion. Yes, the previous beautiful companion of the Kaiser. But as she aged, she grew out of favor.
Yep.
Again, in case you didn't need more evidence that Friedrich IV is kind of a piece of shit.
Yep.
Not that Marquis Benemunde also isn't kind of a piece of shit, as this episode
apparently
shows.
She was really attached to hanging out with the Kaiser.
Apparently, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, she's just really fucking pissed that Annerose is now Countess Grunwald and has the Kaiser's favor, and goes around saying stuff like, "It's all that woman's fault. I want to rip off her face."
Oh man, I forgot about that specific line. But yes, Benemunde has, might we say, an unhealthy obsession with the Kaiser, and in relation to that, Annerose. And so she begins plotting with none other than our friend
Baron Flegel.
Yes.
Who specifically called out a few episodes ago.
Yes. Well, turns out Flegel is still up to old tricks of being a snide piece of shit.
Yep.
And ostensibly teams up with Benemunde to kidnap and assassinate Annerose, because clearly This is Annerose's fault. This is not Kaiser Friedrich's fault. This is not the fault of the system they live in.
No, it's that
No,
woman's
clearly-
fault.
Yes, clearly in this
She slept
situation
her way
where
to the top. It's all conspiracy.
Yep. Those, she's just a slut using her sex to get to the top. It's clearly not perhaps a deeper issue with the very way your society is run. No, let's just blame Annerose.
Yep, and of course, Flegel's doing this to get at Reinhardt.
Of course, yes. The second they go their separate ways, Flegel's like, yeah, we're gonna, or Flegel's like attendant is like, so we're setting up Benemunde, right? We're totally gonna fuck her over. And Flegel's like, yeah, of course we are. Like, this lady's fucking nuts, but she's useful to our ends, So already Flegel's showing his true colors. But yeah, so Reinhard, kind of hears gets rumor of this plot, and
right.
I don't know why I found it so funny that as soon as Reinhard hears about this, he's just like, let's have Oberstein handle let's have Oberstein handle this.
Yeah.
Like, of all the people you got in your bench,
Oberstein. Yeah. Not Kirkjais, not Bittermeier, not Royenthal. Let's have Oberstein look into this.
And in some ways, perhaps as this episode shows, that was the most reasonable choice of all.
Sure.
But
I think, of all the people mentioned, I feel like Oberstein is already, like, demonstrably has the least moral quandaries about doing shady business.
I mean, yes. I think that's kind of why Reinhardt said have Oberstein handle this, because of anybody in Reinhardt's bench, he's the one who's going to get you the results in the most expedient way.
Yeah.
And when it's the nature, and when it's a case of your sister potentially being assassinated, I can see why you would turn to men like Oberstein.
Yeah.
But yeah, so rumors start to spread, which turns out maybe not so much rumors when you're literally going around, the noble court shouting about how much you hate Annerose. Because Benemunde is placed under, like, pseudo house arrest.
That's right.
And she's furious about this, but also, can you really deny the charges placed against you?
Yeah. And so, while Reinhardt is in a strategy meeting with the rest of the military top brass, some dudes in, like, masquerade masks.
Yeah, these fucking Phantom of the Opera motherfuckers, like, show up and ambush Annerose's, like, car.
Capes and fedoras and domino masks. And...
It's so much. Like, fucking, the Empire shit is so much, dude. I can't even handle it. They are so extra in a way that is...
Yeah.
Just absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, like, I guess Kaiser Rudolph made the decision that the fashion of the Empire is gonna be, like, late 19th century, like, just
like 19th century
like
19th century stage play shit. Yeah. It's so over the top, and I kind of love it. And in many ways, I definitely understand why this episode probably didn't make the cut into D&T, but it's that good a reminder that, like, you're watching the FPA episodes and you're, like, getting depressed about the demise of democracy.
Oh, we'll get there.
And then you watch, like, the Empire episodes, and it's like, oh, wait, right, the other side of this equation is this fucking, like, crazy-ass space opera.
Just, like, wallowing in decadence.
Yeah, it's so much. But yeah, so Annerose gets kidnapped, taken to Benemunde's, I guess, fucking vacation cabin out in the woods or some shit. And she's just like, all right. And this is so, like, Benemunde gets so dramatic. So fucking, like, she's going all in. Like, she's, like, I wish I'd written some of it down, but she's just like, just like, you slut, you whore.
You shameless bitch.
Yeah, you shameless bitch. And then she's like, and this is how you're gonna die, Annerose. I'm gonna make you drink this poison wine, and then I'm gonna put your body next to a sleeping farm boy, and then it's gonna destroy your reputation. The Kaiser will repudiate you. you will go down in history as the biggest slut in Imperial history.
It's so much.
Your brother will be disgraced, and Kaiser Friedrich IV will embrace me with open arms again. It's so fucking. Oh my gosh, it's so much.
So overwrought.
It's so crazy. It's like this kind of like fucking courtly intrigue, like fucking operatic theater shit is like so different from the FPA stories.
I
in a
could
way
totally
that
see this just being like a mid-tier opera or some shit.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And we didn't even mention it, right? But yeah. So Mittermeier and Royenthal are kind of like the. Speaking of like operas and plays, like they're kind of starting to become the
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yes, of Reinhardt's admiralty, and they were the ones who noticed the kidnapping. They're the ones who come running to Reinhardt, and then it's when those two and Kircheis are like, "All right, saddle up, boys. We're gonna fucking
kind of go save Annerose."
Right, we don't have time to like grab the Royal Guard or like the Galactic Empire equivalent of the SWAT team. Just we're going in. And they do a pretty good job. They catch up remarkably fast.
Yeah,
like considering
how long Benemunde's like ridiculous monologue was.
Right.
I'm sure
yes.
They had ample time.
Yes, Annerose probably had to stand there and listen to those insults for like a good couple of hours, which thankfully gave our boys plenty of time to catch up and find the cabin.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get into a brief shootout.
Just murk some guys.
Yeah. These three are pretty good shots. Mittermeier, Royenthal certainly have like a good system set up here.
Yeah.
And they bust in and basically like, hey, fucking, it's over, Benemunde. Like we know your shit. Like,
but she's got Annerose at knife point.
Yes, and Kircheis, being Kircheis, puts the gun down. Then the lights go out. Give our heroes a chance to secure Annerose.
It was Oberstein.
And who else than Oberstein to save the day? Just walking through the door frame, being like,
"Hey guys, I'm here."
Yeah, like, hey guys. I guess I was a little late, but worked out in the end, huh?
Yep.
Fucking. It's like you literally don't see him this entire episode. Like even when Reinhardt's like, let's let Oberstein handle it. He doesn't even show up until this moment, which I don't know why, but the timing of it was
so funny,
delightful to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Benemunde escapes, but in the end, Kaiser Friedrich, hearing about this, decides, well, I guess I probably should have done something about this way sooner.
Yeah.
And considering this is almost mostly Kaiser Friedrich's fault to begin with. But
not that he accepts much responsibility for this.
Nah, not that he takes much responsibility
considering
for
his sentence on.
Yeah. Friedrich's sentence is one of the most fucking like this episode is so fucking theatrical, and this sentence is maybe
so good,
the fucking pinnacle of it.
We gathered like 24 people into this beautiful hall so that Benemunde can be placed here, and we read her sentence.
Yes, and that sentence is
you'll be allowed the chance to kill yourself, and because you were once favored by the Kaiser, he'll attend your funeral.
It's so fucking wild. It's so
and a man comes out with a beautiful pillow and a glass of wine.
Yeah, and suffice to say, Benemunde doesn't take it well. Fucking rants to the court, rants at Reinhardt, spits in Reinhardt's face.
That's right. That's right.
And then kind of goes out pretty
Yeah, she doesn't want to drink that wine.
And they sure make her drink that wine. It's quite the scene. It's pretty gratuitous in a way. It's just
yeah, I mean it is. I think it's meant to be because it's
it's
showing the like disgusting decadence and corruption of the empire.
Oh, totally right. It's not to say Benemunde in some ways probably didn't deserve it, but it's still a pretty rough way to go. It's a lot, and episode basically just kind of ends with like the narrator saying like that things like these, events like these, that when they happen, are the signs of a decaying empire.
Yeah.
Kaiser Friedrich is rapidly losing his hold on the empire. In some ways, he never really held onto it in the first place, and
We do have a bit of Annerose, showing herself to be the perfect, pure,
yeah, I guess I feel bad. I feel like
etc.
in many ways, Annerose really didn't even get to be much of a character in this
Yeah.
episode. Like in many ways, Annerose is still maybe one of the least developed characters in this show, and
She's a kind of just a walk-in plot device for
yeah, kind of like she's
Reinhardt.
just generically, kind-hearted and pure and good, and she kind of
Yeah.
just exists to be like Reinhardt, like the light in Reinhardt's life. And I hope that eventually she also gets some, development. I feel like,
Yeah, I hope so.
you
Definitely.
know, everybody else in Legend of the Galactic Heroes is so well developed, and Anna Rose by comparison is kind of so slightly written. And, I don't mean to like make assumptions, but sometimes I do wonder, like, is it just because, she is the female, like, nominated damsel in distress on the
Yeah.
Empire's side? Like, does she kind of just exist to be threatened, to threaten Reinhard? If that makes sense.
Right. Right.
And I hope that's not the case, or at least if I hope that eventually Anna Rose does get some chance to better define herself as a character. Like what does she like? What does she dislike? What are her feelings on these matters? Like these are
Yeah.
questions that I don't think are too crazy, but I do hope get shown in some capacity down the line. Because I feel like in many ways, like if we want to care about Reinhardt and if we want to care about Reinhardt's struggles, we need to better know Anna Rose as well.
We need to care about Annerose in the same way Reinhardt does for
Right,
that
right.
for that motivation to really take hold. I think.
Yes, I agree. But anyways, with that episode ending, we then move on to episode 12,
Back to the FPA.
Invasion of the Imperial Territory.
I feel like the events of this episode when we saw them in D&T are like the shit that really made us go, we really need to watch this original.
Yes, yes. For those who aren't aware, we watched DNT, the TV remake of Legend of the Galactic Heroes prior to this, and
Yeah.
I'd say it was this episode or the story of this episode in D&T as well that finally convinced us that, like, we were already enjoying Legend of the Galactic Heroes prior to this, but this is the episode where we realized this show was operating on a truly special level,
Yeah, for sure.
and we absolutely needed to watch the original because in many ways, and we'll get into this more, but in many ways, like the Empire is a worse government, it's a worse system, but also as people who have spent their entire lives living in what is ostensibly a democratic republic,
Yeah.
we don't truly know, we don't personally know or have experienced the horror of an autocratic dictatorship, the what it means to chafe under noble rule. So while we can like clinically analyze and accept that it is a bad government ruled by bad people,
Yeah.
it doesn't quite resonate with us in the same way that watching the FPA kind of sign its own death warrant in
Fuck
this
itself up.
episode, does, because it is so familiar to us. But let's just get into it.
Yep.
So the narrator basically explains that, long story short, Yang won too hard at Iserlohn.
Yep.
His side took no casualties, and they also captured, 500,000, Imperial prisoners.
If we did so well these are long, what's stopping us from just doing that well against the whole empire?
Right. The public gets greedy. The pro-war sides of the government grow, stronger and more bold, and it's kind of a tragic thing where you realize, oh, like Yang won too hard. He won in a way that he thought was the most humanitarian way to win this war. And he's right, it was, but
It was.
the long-term unintended consequences of winning the battle that way are resonating in a way that may ultimately end up destroying the FBA.
Yep. So
like it's a sad fact that if Yang had taken casualties, like if Iserlohn had been a close fight, like if Yang had just barely captured Iserlohn, I think you then have a situation where the public is a little bit more wary, right? They're a little bit more like, man, we just barely managed to hold Israel alone. Like, we can't think about,
Can't think about doing any more of this.
yes, like we just need to stay here, hold it, and like recuperate. But because not only does Young win a bloodless battle, or almost, but ignoring the Rosenritter's part, an almost bloodless battle.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we'll get into this soon, right? Because Young and Siddeley, who are driving to a meeting, get caught up in a traffic jam, and the traffic jam, they're explained, or someone explains to them, is caused by somebody making a mistake in the central traffic
mistake in the system, and we can't get a specialist out here for a while.
Right, they literally don't have enough manpower. Like, the war has drained the FPA of so much of its its available skilled labor that the civilian sector is kind of falling into shambles.
Yep.
And the economy is suffering as a result.
We're explaining the main vector for this explanation is Treasury Secretary Joanne Labello.
Yes.
Who they also meet at the traffic jam.
Yes, and Joanne or Joan or whatever, Labello, basically introduces himself as one of the politicians that is part of the FPA's sort of high council, the elected representatives who meet to decide all of the FPA's political actions. And Labello also explains that the issue is also that not only did Young win too hard, he won too bloodlessly. He managed to capture the entire Iserlohn garrison, 500,000 Imperial prisoners of war that they now have to house and feed and contain and, basically just have to deal with now. Like, it's that, horrible thought that occurs in the back of your head that, I think Yang or Siddeley basically says, are you saying
we have just killed them all?
We should have just killed them all? And I do love this line. Labello says, of course not. We're a democracy. And it's so... It is idealistic in a way that actually really started to endear me to Labello this episode. I feel like...
He's strikes me as a realist.
He strikes me as the platonic ideal of a good politician. Like, I'm not saying he's some saint of fairness and goodness, but the way he talks and the way he argues makes his arguments feels very grounded in the
reality. What needs to be said.
Yeah, he says what needs to be said, and he backs it. He doesn't back it up with rhetoric. He backs up his arguments with very real evidence. When he's saying that we can't go to war, he's saying we can't go to war because
our economy will collapse.
We can't go to war because we don't have we have to take care of 500,000 prisoners now. We can't go to war because we don't have the logistics to support it. He is the platonic ideal of a politician who is arguing not only for good things, but he's doing it from a place of a grounded understanding of the situation. And in many ways, I'm kind of glad he exists as a character because I think,
for sure.
As we'll get into with the council meeting, I think if every politician, if every general was an incompetent dickhead,
it wouldn't be believable at all. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter how bad a system gets, no matter how bad a society gets, there always will be good people, trying their best.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And in a democracy, what happens is that those good people don't have enough sway to make the changes that need to be made. And we'll get into
exactly
that now.
What happens at the High Council meeting.
When the High Council meets to basically vote on do we go to war or not? And Labello kind of gets up there and he's like,
bad idea. We're going to go broke.
This war's not sustainable. Right, we cannot sustain this, And then, speaking of to speak of the opposite of politicians who back up their arguments with good evidence, we meet Cornelia Windsor, who basically does the most fucking shitty politician thing imaginable, which is just appealing to flat rhetoric with nothing to back it up, about how we have to go to war because it's our noble obligation to overthrow the empire, about how we're doing this for freedom and liberty, about how, each and every single one of us is ready to lay our lives down to spread democracy through the world.
Totally, as you speak from your sequestered council room in the depths of the alliance.
Right, in a position of privilege, in the center of your own territory, it's very easy, I'm sure, to make these big, big fucking
Grand statements.
right grand statements about
About our noble obligation to overflow the Galactic Empire.
Yes, it's so fucking like shitty and terrible, and like not only that, but then it's not even that argument that is maybe the worst. The worst argument is floated by one of the other council members who says, also, I'd like to remind you all that election season is coming up and approval ratings are down.
But if we win and then if we get a big victory the next 100 days before the election, our approval ratings will go up.
And it's like, gee, did you ever think that maybe your approval ratings are down because you're bad politicians? Because your economy is in shambles? Because, like, your country is falling apart?
Your decisions are bad for society.
But, it's a thing where it's that reminder that it's a thing Yang talks about this episode, right? Of democracy is ideologically, it is the best government, but when democracy comes under the control of selfish, greedy people, it can become one of the most destructive types of government in existence. It is so susceptible to this specific type of corruption, this specific type of rot. And yeah, so, long story short, the council votes and they agree. We're going to war.
Yep. Except for Labello and his buddy Kwong Lewis, who also doesn't vote for war.
Yes, just those two and Job Trunicht.
Job Trunicht. No, he already knows that.
Right, Job is maybe, we didn't speak about Job, but yes, he is also here on the council, and he is maybe the most insidious of them all, because he kind of like, at the very beginning of this debate, he kind of like floats a very like milquetoast version of Cornelia Windsor's argument of like, but isn't it our responsibility to go to war? And that's all he says, and then he's silent for the rest of the debate. And then at the very end, he votes against the war.
Yep, and he, has his fucking surface level. I understand what Mr. Labella was saying, however, and
he basically like goes to the press and he literally basically says, I want everybody to know that on paper, I voted against the war because I think
I'm proud to be a patriot.
Right, and but what I think this really says is that Job is maybe the most insidious type of politician, where he is playing the long run. Or he is playing the long run power play, regardless of what costs it might inflict on the country.
Yeah,
I think Job Trunicht, like, this is only speculation, but I think Job's long term play is he knows the FPA is going to lose the war, or the war is going to go badly.
Because he dissented, he'll get reelected by the
people who
are unhappy with the war.
Right, he will be the one who can tell everybody, well, see, I'm a patriot, but, I knew the war wasn't going to go well. And, like, he's going to be able to sweep up the election, like, next time. Like,
I did everything I could.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he is literally voting contrary to his own true interests to get elected down the line, because, unfortunately, he is actually savvy enough to know or see the writing on the wall. Like, maybe that's the worst thing, right? Like, the rest of these politicians are just stupid and short-sighted. Like, Job Trunicht actually is smart enough to know the war is going to fail, but he's going to let it happen anyways, because he's going to let like millions of people die because it's going to help him get elected.
Personal gain, yeah. It's fucking bullshit, man.
It's some real shitty stuff, and this is an episode full of real shitty stuff.
Yep.
Including, once they find out they're going to war, Young meets with Admiral Greenhill.
Yep.
And not only Admiral Greenhill, but one Commodore Andrew Fork.
Fuck this guy.
Fucking Falk, whatever. We'll call him Fork for now. Fucking Commodore Fork is maybe the most fucking, like, hateable character in this entire series. Yes, yes, we are met. We meet Commodore Andrew Fork, the man who drafted up the FPA
like a
plan.
Staff officer or something.
Yes, a staff officer, chief staff officer who drafted the plan to invade the Empire.
The major air quotes plan.
Yes, because once all the generals of the FPA meet and Fork reveals his plan, turns out it's a whole lot of hot air. He basically says his plan is just, we're gonna charge straight into galactic space, and we're gonna beat them up real good, and then we're gonna win the whole war.
We're gonna liberate the Empire, and because we're all so great, and I'm so great for coming up with this great plan, and it'll be great, everyone.
Yeah, it's some real fucking like Commodore Fork. This fucking
Half-assed, self-serving bullshit.
this self-serving rat think of a person is just it's unbelievable. Like it's so blatant, right? Like how self-serving he is, how much all of this like if it even like figures in his head, it's all a game to him, or not a game, but like there
She
are
doesn't
no
give a shit.
there are no real like this isn't like a real thing to him. Like I don't know how the FBA trains up their cadets, but like they're putting out people like Fork, like y'all got a problem, because you know
I do really appreciate that during his fucking speech about how it's our patriotic duty and we're gonna make the blood of the Empire run cold with our strike force, that we do get people in the room speaking up saying, that's kind of abstract, can you be more specific about this plan, please?
Yes,
Or
this is very good. Yes, it's like same with the politicians here with the Admiralty as well. There's a very healthy, like, grounded nature to this debate because it shows you that yes, there are a lot of shitty, incompetent leaders in the FPA, but there are also people who completely don't fall for it. Like they completely see right through the bullshit. You know, like yeah, they're basically saying like, hey, that's a nice statement and all, but how are we going to keep our armies fed?
What's our actual objective?
Right, what is our actionable plan? Like, how do we deal with logistics? How do we make sure we don't get cut off from our supply line? You know, how do we actually hold this territory? Do we have the resources to do it? You know, are we going to be able to keep our men fed during this campaign? And these are all completely reasonable arguments that are faced with maybe the most insidious, shitty type of argument, which is the appeal to loyalty. You know, Fork.
Are you saying you don't believe in the power of the Free Planets Alliance?
Right. Yeah. Like, are you not a patriot? Do you not love your country? You know, do you not love democracy? You know, it's so fucking like yeah. Like, when Fork has the fucking audacity to like, he basically says like, oh, Yang, when you voice all those concerns, what you're doing is helping the Empire. Are you a traitor to the FPA? And then thank God fucking Bucock is here. Like, we haven't even talked about him, but they introduced fucking Admiral Bucock here, who, because we watch DNT, we know how fucking great this dude is. But he is basically like, fucking shut your mouth, boy. How dare you fucking accuse Yang Wenli of this kind of bullshit? Like, you fucking snake in the grass. And then Fork responds with like that's the thing. Fork, like, bless Legend of the Galactic Hero for like so keenly understanding how to write the shittiest possible character.
Oh yeah.
Fork responds in the shittiest possible way of saying,
I just love our country so much.
Oh, you thought I was accusing Yang? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just speaking generally. I'm sorry you were offended. And it's like, oh, you fucking piece of garbage. Like
my notes have a lot of caps lock lines for this section of the episode.
Yeah. It's and that's the thing, right? Like, Fork is basically just all hot air. He's blasting all this rhetoric up everybody's ass with no evidence to back it up, and like. And
he's
like
still in a position of power.
He's still in a position of power, and his plan still goes through. Like, despite all of these concerns that they air, the plan goes ahead. Like it goes ahead. It's going ahead as is, and you know, this is how a country dies. You know, like I'm not gonna act like I'm like the most like accomplished history fan in the world. You know, I studied history in college, but having read up on the history of a lot of countries and a lot of eras. This is how a nation dies. This is how a nation falls. Like it's things like these, right? It's never like some gigantic cataclysmic event. It's a series of events. It's a series of bad decisions made by certain people that were, that couldn't be stopped by the people that were smart enough to see the writing on the wall. And these events build up, they add up until they snowball into something as cataclysmic as the complete destruction of a country. And we can get into this a little bit later once we finish recapping this episode, but it's I just don't see the way out for the FPA,
Yeah.
But
I feel like this shit hits even harder considering recent events, let's say.
Yeah. I mean,
I know. Yeah.
even more than just recent events, I think it's more just that. I think the reason why it still feels so relevant now is because Legend of the Galactic Heroes has such a keen understanding of human nature and society and
Right.
politics.
There are always people like this.
Right, like the shitty politics we're seeing in this show, like that didn't come out of a void. Like that was informed by the shitty politics of probably the time it was written.
Yeah.
And it just turns out that that shit doesn't change that much, Or even if the faces change and the methods change, people are going to be greedy and they're going to be selfish and they're going to put their own interests ahead of others, even if that means horrible things done to those people who had no ability to prevent this. And
Yep.
the episode basically kind of ends with Siddeley being pretty frank with Yang. He's like,
We need you.
Fork is a fool. Like Fork is an idiot, and he's doing this all because he perceives you as a rival to be destroyed. And Yang's like, what? We're not rival. And Siddeley's like, it's kind of like it's like the thing about getting politicized. Like you don't get a choice in whether you're somebody's rival or not. If they hate you, they hate you.
Yeah.
And Yang, we need you. Like the reason why I needed you on the 13th Fleet is because we're going to need as many people as possible who can put out the fires that are going to happen because of this plan.
As many sensible people on staff as we can get.
Right. Like, this plan is going to fail and people are going to die. Yang, we need you here to minimize that. Like to basically like perform as much damage control as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Which is like a real fucking tragic like the fact that the upper brass of this army are literally going into a war they're like 90% sure they're going to lose and they still have to do it anyways. There's everything you need to say about
Yep.
the weaknesses of a democratic government when the power is placed in the hands of the incompetent and the selfish. Kind of cap off these 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I did want to talk about Yang's statement that he makes in this episode that I think more than anything truly gets to the core of what is the central argument of.
Is this the government?
Yes, of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I have it here. Yang basically says, the Empire, with a few nobles ruling the masses, is bad government.
The alliance with the government chosen by its people is badly governed.
Yes, which
is more in the wrong.
Exactly. And
that's Legend of the Galactic Heroes right there.
That's the kind of the core of it, right? Like Galactic, it's very easy to like say, I think it's not very easy, but I think it's very easy to fuck up the like, the both sides story, you got to pay attention to both sides or you got to treat both sides with equal weight when honestly that's not the case. But I think the reason why Legend of the Galactic Heroes can pull this off is because it gives them the weight they deserve. It gives them the attention they deserve, the thought they deserve.
It's not just a surface level thing. Like we're seeing deep into both sides and
right.
seeing how they're both wrong in some ways.
Exactly. Like it's very easy to just say, we should still listen to the fascists. But Legend of the Galactic Heroes actually takes a step further and says, actually, let me show you what that is like, and then you can make your own informed decision. It gives it the time and attention it deserves. And I think that is very much going to become the central, conflict of this show, right? Mm-hmm. Reinhardt is ascendant. Reinhardt is rising to power. The Empire is in a place of weakness now, but the only place direction it can go now is up. Reinhardt will take the throne. He will become the Kaiser.
Right. At some point.
And then when it is absolute rule placed in the hands of the, theoretical benevolent dictator, what can stop that? It's not going to be a corrupt democracy. And I think that's basically going to be the fight, right? Like, is going to be the ideological conflict between theoretical benevolent dictatorship led by Reinhardt versus the decadent and corrupt democracy.
Just gets mired in its own foolishness.
Yeah, and if Yang will be able to stand by its ideals no matter what, like even when those ideals are failing right in front of him, can and will Yang still fight for it because it's still worth it?
And I genuinely don't know where we're going. Like, I mean, we're coming up soon on where D&T ended. I think probably by the end of the next batch, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the exciting thing. We are now almost into uncharted territory here.
Yeah, everything up till now, we've had a general idea of how it's going to go because we watched DNT. But
Yes. The things we've seen up till now, we kind of knew and what to expect. We still kind of know what to expect in the next 3 episodes, probably, unless there are a few more of those like Empire interlude episodes, which there might be.
right,
Knowing the way the show
I
runs.
could totally see that happening.
But yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. We are approaching new material, and I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, neither can I. Just like with with so many most stories, I would say even like you have a general idea that this is the protagonist. This person is going to overcome the antagonist, or otherwise, if it's tragedy or something, they'll fail, etc., etc. And just in general, we always have an idea of like where something's going, and we have that suspension of disbelief about it happening. But this Legend of Galactic Heroes is, I think, one of the few things, at least recently, that I can think of where I genuinely have no clue where it's going, where it's going to end up. I just don't know what's going to happen.
Right? It's kind of exciting, Yeah, to kind of mirror your thoughts. Most of the time, if you pull yourself back far enough away from a piece of fiction, you can kind of start to make general guesses at what direction it's going to go. It's not that's not an indictment of most fiction. That's just the nature of how storytelling is accomplished. But
yes,
Legend of the Galactic Heroes crafts such a complex and interesting, web of storylines and characters that, yeah, I truly don't know. And as I was telling Iro like the other day, I don't even know how the next 20 episodes are going to go. Like
yeah.
I don't know how the
We're only 10%.
We're only 10% in, and we're already faced, or the storytelling has done such a good job of framing a conflict in such a way where, to Iro and I's perception, we don't even know how the FPA could possibly survive the next 20 episodes.
Yeah.
In the state it's in. Like, Reinhardt is only going to get stronger. He's only going to accrue more power. And he can do that because he is in a system that allows that. He is in a system that, because of its nature, because of the way noble politics is all just, it's kind of just bullshit, right? It's power plays and rhetoric.
Yeah.
So Reinhardt is perfectly suited in that environment to take power as rapidly as possible.
Yeah. It's like we were saying it even in episode 1 that like if Yang's just constantly putting out fires, like it's not enough.
Right, it's not enough, and that's the problem. Is that's kind of still what it feels like now. Is Yang is not going to become admiral of the entire fleet anytime soon. He's not going to become, the head
supreme leader.
Yeah, supreme leader of the FPA. It will never happen because the government he exists in does not allow that to happen. Like, the strength of the government Yang inhabits is that, the Platonic ideal is that the people will always vote in their best interests, that they will always decide what is the best course of action for the nation to take. And so that even if things are bad now, they can be course corrected. But what if it's too late? What if the FPA have committed to something so catastrophic that there is no way for them to survive this? And at least to me, that's kind of what it feels like now. This war is so short-sighted. It's so foolish. It's so selfish and greedy that, like, I just don't see how this doesn't entirely blow up in their faces. Like, for me, it's like worse. Like I feel like the baseline of this scenario is probably they lose Iserlohn, and that's the best case scenario. Like, the best case scenario.
And then we're back to square one. Right. Like just lots more people are dead.
Right, just a lot more people are dead, and that's depressing as hell. But yeah, like, to me, the best case scenario is the FPA get beat so bad they retreat past Iserlohn, and Reinhardt manages to take it back, and we are literally back to the status quo. But that's just the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is Reinhardt keeps pushing past that, and then what?
Just don't know. I mean, we've been theorizing that Phezzan who has been basically feeding the Empire everything they need to know to deal with this stuff. Like, in theory, they'll start helping out the Alliance to maintain the balance, but
right, in theory, Phezzan is the neutral linchpin that will change things when it suits them. And I do think Phezzan will, or at least I'm fairly confident Phezzan will eventually, just because, at least to my own logic, it seems like Phezzan cannot maintain its autonomy in a world where the Galactic Empire is the only government.
Right.
Like
Like
Phezzan kind of
I feel like
ends.
they're basically allowed. I feel like they're basically allowed to maintain a measure of autonomy because it allows the Empire to receive goods from the Alliance.
Yeah, and information, as we see.
Yeah.
And right, so that's the thing, is like, but then in that case, what can Phezzan do that is a big enough boon to the FPA at this point? You know, like what can, like, let's say the Empire completely whoops, the FPA in this war and like starts pushing back into FPA territory. Like, I guess I'm just curious, what could Phezzan supply
Right.
to the FPA, whether an information, intel, or material that would be a big enough, game changer.
Yeah. Empire already fucking knows the weakness of the Artemis necklace.
Right. It's like, yeah, like Phezzan already leaked that, so like, that shit's already worthless. So yeah, it really is a question of.
I just don't know.
And that's kind of fantastic. Like, we're speculating on things that we have no idea where it's going to go, because Legend of the Galactic Heroes has just done such a great job of framing it all so magnificently. Honestly, I mean, again, maybe in retrospect, maybe 90 episodes later, we're going to look back at this first campaign and we're going to be like, oh, that was such a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. But it's an indication of how good the writing is in Legend of Galactic Heroes, that at least in the then and now of right here, where we are in this show's story, it feels like the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah. Even though we know we're only 10% in.
And that's crazy. And that's awesome.
It's great. It's so good.
Yes, it's so good. I think with that, that's going to do it for this episode of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. Do you have any last minute thoughts, Iro?
Fuck Andrew Fork.
Fuck Andrew Fork.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. Seriously, if there's anything to be taken away from these 3 episodes, it's fuck Andrew Fork. Fucking rat fink piece of shit.
Fuck Cornelia Windsor.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, fuck Cornelia Windsor. Fuck Job Trunicht. Man,
fuck all of them all. Voted for war.
Yeah, fuck the people who voted for them. Fuck the people who voted in the war. Like. Man, yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing about that's the nice thing about a democracy, right? Is that you get to spread the blame. Compare that to the Empire, where if that shit falls apart, it all falls on Friedrich. I suppose that's another one of the pros and cons of those two governments.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think that'll do it. So, some quick housekeeping. You can find all of our content at theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can find our podcast, on the blog, on iTunes. You can also find it on YouTube.
Yep, the GLORIO blog.
Yes, like and subscribe, leave a good review.
Tell your friends.
And, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, so next time I think we're covering episodes 13, 14, and 15.
Yes, so next time we will be covering those 3 episodes. And,
don't forget to watch. Don't forget that Legend of Galactic Heroes is available on High Dive.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is streaming on High Dive, so please go check that out.
I think Legend of Galactic Heroes Gaiden as well.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll introduce Legend of the GLORIO Heroes Gaiden. But for now, anyways, thank you for listening. Thank you, Iro, for coming along on this journey.
Thank you.
We got a long way to go, but with no end in sight. But you know what? That's honestly pretty exciting.
Yep, for sure.
And so that, I bid you all farewell. We will see you all again amongst the sea of stars.